So the next thing that Biden has on the agenda is infrastructure. That's what seems to be the consensus and what everybody's saying. That's what the conventional wisdom is. That's probably true. But the other thing that's now being floated is taxes. What's he going to do when it comes to taxes? Well, here's a short segment discussing that.
Good morning, Jonathan. And in fact, Secretary Yellen dodging the question as to whether or not the administration supports the tax on ultra-millionaires and billionaires that was put forth the other week from Senator Elizabeth Warren. That wealth tax is something that is really going to ignite a debate amongst Democrats, particularly as progressives look to move President Biden back to the left following the compromise that he made with centrists during the last round of stimulus negotiations. But let's take a look at what the administration has let leak out with regards to some proposals for what they are looking to be a framework for the tax proposal. First and foremost, to repeal parts of that Republican 2017 Trump tax cuts, to raise some of the corporate tax rate back to 28%. Republicans are not going to like that on the banking committee. They feel that a lower corporate tax rate would help to drive some foreign investment back to the United States. And then increasing income tax on those earning more than $400,000 annually. Either way, it's hard to see how this would actually get through with any Republican support. And because of that, it's increasingly unlikely that in the immediate short term, they would be able to get this through. Jonathan?
This is where the conversation is, though, right now. Kevin, it's good to see you, sir.
Now, that's why they need to do filibuster reform. And thankfully, Biden just came out the other day and said, I'm not in favor of eliminating the filibuster, but I am in favor of making the filibuster again. Namely, make it the talking filibuster where you have to actually do work, and it requires a lot of effort in order to filibuster it. Because if we have the talking filibuster, there's no way they'd be able to do as many filibusters as they would do when they just get to declare, I am now filibustering. So none of this entire conversation is academic unless and until they reform the filibuster. Like literally just a total waste of time. The Democrats have 51 votes. They would need 60 votes to get any of this done, and you're not even going to get one Republican, never mind 9 Republicans, to get on board with this sort of agenda. Even though, by the way, this is populist, what we're talking about here. And you have a handful of Republicans who are now pretending to be populist. Josh Hawley is one. Marco Rubio is another who came out with like a semi-endorsement of the Amazon union effort, which is surprising, but it was really weaselly. He used terrible arguments, and he made clear, like, I only mean for Amazon because I don't like Amazon. In other ways, fuck unions. So, but point is that they're frauds. They're not going to support populist tax proposals like an ultra-millionaires and billionaires tax, a wealth tax. They're not going to support repealing parts of the Trump's tax cut bill from 2017. 83% of the benefits of that bill went to the top 1%. And you'll see Hawley and Rubio are not going to be in favor of taking away some of the benefits from the wealthy. The corporate tax. So they bring up, Biden wants to raise the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%. This is quintessential Joe Biden. Why do I say that? You want to know what it was before Trump cut it to 21%? 35%. I mean, this is just perfect Joe Biden. Instead of coming in and saying, not only do I not want it 21%, I want to go back to what it was, 35%. Or he could have even said, I don't want the corporate tax at 21%. I want to double it, 42. I want to raise it to 42%. Instead of that, what does he do? Let's go from 21 to 28, which isn't even back to what it was just before Trump. Now, listen, to be fair, there might be a conversation to be had about loopholes. So maybe even though it was 35% on paper before Trump, after all the loopholes and deductions, people, some corporations were paying 0. So maybe Biden means make it 28% and eliminate a lot of those loopholes, which would mean they're net paying a higher tax rate. It's yet to be seen, but I still think the optics of it are hilarious because it's exactly what we'd expect from a neoliberal corporatist like Biden. Like, don't even go back to what it was just before Trump. Let's still make it lower than that, but I'm going to raise it from what Trump did because what Trump did is bad. Okay. And then, of course, they say increasing the income tax on earners who make $400,000 a year or more. That's, again, I think opposing that is madness. The number has crept up over the years. When Obama ran, he said people who make over $100,000 a year. Then it became $150,000, then it became $250,000. Now it's at $400,000 plus. So the Democrats keep moving further and further right, and the Republicans, stay in their exact same place of like all taxes on wealthy people are terrible and we should eliminate as many of them as humanly possible, which again is the most elitist position you can possibly take. And that's the main point here. all these Republicans who are pretending to be populist, there's not a populist one among them, because if there were, some of them would come out and say, I just flat out support Joe Biden's plan here. Because Joe Biden is not at all talking about raising taxes on working people. Not at all. Not one of the taxes would raise taxes on working people. So if they're not raising taxes on working people, but they're only raising it on the wealthy, if you are a populist, you should be like, that's what's up. I'm down for that 100%. Let's do it. None of them are saying that. None of them are going to do that. Joe would need 9 Republicans to get it through regular order now. Again, he's not even going to get one. What does that tell you about the Republicans? What does that tell you? Completely corporate, completely corrupt, completely elitist. Now, again, in the case of Joe, though, on paper, this stuff is good, but what will the plan actually be when it gets down to it? So let's assume for a second they do reform the filibuster. They do that, okay? And so they can get something with 51 votes. Okay. What will the plan actually look like? Unfortunately, it wouldn't look like this. Why? Because Manchin and Sinema are going to say, well, we don't agree with the tax on ultra-millionaires and billionaires. Okay. They would say, well, maybe we're in favor of raising taxes a little bit on the wealthy, but not as much as you, Joe. So instead of $400,000 and up, make it $500,000 a year and up. Those are the people we'll raise taxes on. So there's going to be a back and forth. There's going to be shitty positions taken by Manchin and Sinema, and Biden will cave to them. But I'm curious to see what would come out of a negotiation like that. I really am. I'm curious to see which taxes Manchin and Sinema in particular would target. Which ones would they look at and say, don't touch that one? Or I don't agree with you raising taxes this much on this group of people or with this kind of tax. I'd be very curious to see because, again, all these ideas on paper are great ideas. You know, they don't go far enough, but they're good. They're good, strong, populist economic ideas. So anybody on the Republican side or the Democratic side who comes out against them, they're just letting you know I'm incredibly elitist, I'm a corporatist, and I'm corrupt. A lot of them are corrupt, and that's why they don't want to raise taxes on the wealthier corporations. So again, we'll see. But unless and until they reform that filibuster, this entire conversation is academic.